The night sky over Rome glowed red. On the Capitoline Hill, flames leapt into the heavens, devouring marble and wood, black smoke rolling across the city like a storm. The great bronze doors of the Temple of Jupiter groaned as heat twisted their hinges. Statues of gods cracked and toppled, their faces melting in the inferno. Gold leaf and ivory, treasures gathered from centuries of conquest, burned like kindling. And all of Rome watched. The temple that had stood for centuries, the beating heart of Roman religion, the symbol of Jupiter's favor and Rome's greatness, was collapsing in ash. But it was not the barbarians who set it alight. No foreign army had stormed the Capitoline. No Gauls or Carthaginians had laid siege to Rome this day. It was Romans who lit the torches. Romans who fought in the shadow of their own god. Romans who brought their temple down. The day Rome burned its own temple was not just a fire. It was a wound to the soul of the empire. The Temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus was older than the empire itself. Built in the early days of the Republic, perched high on the Capitoline Hill, it was more than stone and marble. It was the house of Rome's king of gods, Jupiter, Optimus Maximus, best and greatest. When Rome was nothing more than a small city-state clawing for survival, this temple was raised. Its foundations were the foundations of Rome's faith in itself. It was the largest, most sacred temple in the city, a visible declaration that Jupiter himself blessed Rome's rise. For centuries, it was rebuilt and expanded, adorned with spoils from conquered lands, ivory from Africa, gold from Greece, exotic marbles from the East. Each victory found its way into Jupiter's house. Every triumph Rome won was sealed beneath its roof. Every victorious general who returned to Rome with laurels marched up to the Capitoline Hill. The triumphal procession ended at the steps of Jupiter's temple. There, the general sacrificed an ox, laid his spoils at the god's feet, and gave thanks for divine favor. To stand on those steps was to stand as the living embodiment of Rome's greatness. No temple mattered more. It was not just a shrine, it was Rome's soul carved in marble. The temple was also Rome's vault. Gold and silver, tribute from conquered provinces, offerings from worshippers, all were stored within. The temple was both sanctuary and treasury, holy ground and financial center. But its true wealth was symbolic. As long as Jupiter's temple stood, Rome believed itself eternal. To destroy it was unthinkable. And yet, the day came when Rome itself would strike the match. Inside stood colossal statues, Jupiter enthroned, thunderbolt in hand. At his side, Juno, goddess of marriage, and Minerva, goddess of wisdom and war. Together, the Capitoline Triad. They were not merely statues, they were embodiments of Roman destiny. To pray before them was to touch the heartbeat of the empire. Festivals filled the temple with chants, incense, and sacrifice. Priests in white robes poured wine, slit throats of bulls, red omens and entrails. The air rang with sacred fire. The temple was not quiet, it was alive. And that is what made its burning unbearable. For when fire consumed the temple, it consumed Rome's gods themselves. The Temple of Jupiter had faced danger before. In 83 BCE, it was burned in another fire, later rebuilt by Sulla, then adorned by later emperors. But each time, Rome rebuilt. The difference, in 69 CE, the year of civil war, was not that the temple fell, it was how. For this time, it was not accident or fate.
It was not lightning from the sky. It was Romans who lit the torches. Romans who fought in the shadow of their own God. Romans who brought their temple down. The day Rome burned its own temple was not just a fire. It was a wound to the soul of the empire.
The year was 69 CE, remembered forever as the year of the four emperors. Rome was a city without a steady master. Nero was dead. The Julio-Claudian dynasty ended in scandal and suicide. Into the void rushed rivals, each claiming the purple, each dragging Rome deeper into chaos. First came Galba, old and miserly, elevated by the Senate, murdered by his own soldiers. Then Otto, hailed by the Praetorians, who reigned only months before he took his own life. Then Vitellius, a general whose legions carried him to power on the blood of Romans. And finally Vespasian, commander of the eastern armies, a soldier hardened in Judea, who would become emperor by the sword. But before Vespasian's rule was secure, Rome itself would tear itself apart. The city turned into a battlefield. Vitellius held Rome, backed by legions loyal to him. Vespasian's supporters stormed the capital, turning alleys into killing grounds. Blood ran through the forum. Corpses littered the streets. Temples, homes, and markets became fortresses. Arrows clattered off marble. Stones hurled from rooftops split skulls below. For the first time since the Gauls sacked the city centuries earlier, Romans fought Romans in the very heart of the empire. The gods themselves watched as brothers shed brothers' blood. The Capitoline Hill was the last stronghold. High above the Forum, crowned with the Temple of Jupiter, it was the citadel of Rome's faith and identity. When Vespasian's supporters fled there, they were not just seeking safety, they were seizing the heart of the city itself. To hold Jupiter's temple was to claim Jupiter's favor. Inside, priests and defenders barred the doors. Supplies were dragged in. The defenders numbered only a few hundred, but they had the high ground, the walls, and the gods. Vitellius's men swarmed below, eager to break them. In the chaos, a single spark became doom. Ancient sources disagree. Some say Vitellius's men set the fire deliberately, flinging torches to drive defenders out. Others claim the defenders themselves caused it by accident, dropping flames on the wooden porticos as they tried to repel attackers. But intent no longer mattered. The fire caught. First, the wooden beams above the portico blazed. Then the flames raced inward, feeding on ivory, timber, and draped cloth. The heat grew unbearable. The Temple of Jupiter was burning. The defenders broke. Inside, panic erupted. The defenders fought on, choking in smoke, their shadows cast against walls by the inferno. Priests clutched relics and sacred vessels, trying to save them, but most were abandoned to the fire. The statue of Jupiter loomed above the chaos, wreathed in flame, the god himself consumed by mortal fury. Some defenders fled down the slopes. Others fought to the death, cut down on the temple steps. Their blood mingled with the ashes of their god. Above them, the roof groaned, then collapsed with a thunderous roar, burying everything beneath. When the smoke cleared, the defenders were dead, the temple gone. The Capitoline Hill, once Rome's citadel of faith, stood blackened and silent. Charred columns jutted like broken teeth against the sky. The treasury was gone, its gold melted or stolen in the chaos. The relics, the offerings of centuries, were nothing but ash. And Rome was silent. The people who once cheered in the Forum looked up at ruins and saw their own shame. Rome had conquered the world, defeated Hannibal, broken kings, crushed revolts. Yet here was proof that Rome could destroy itself more thoroughly than any enemy. The gods, it seemed, had turned their faces away. The Temple of Jupiter would be rebuilt. Vespasian's dynasty, the Flavians, restored it in grandeur, rising again in marble and gold. Later emperors would repair it. adorn it, dedicate it anew. But the memory of that day never faded. Rome never forgot that in the heart of civil war, it had set fire to its own soul. The temple's ruins told a story more terrifying than barbarian invasion, that Rome's greatest enemy was always itself. Civil war could topple emperors, burn temples, and make gods bleed. And for a city that called itself eternal, that truth was the deepest wound of all. The day Rome burned its own temple to ashes was not just a fire. It was a mirror. And in that mirror, Rome saw its own destruction.